happen. Today's guest is retired Lieutenant Colonel Wendell Stevens, formerly of the United States Air Force. Steve, as he likes to be called, seems to be in some very unusual things, and let's find out how you first got into it. When did you first get involved studying things such as extraterrestrials and reported sightings of UFOs?
Well, I got interested in UFOs as a phenomenon about in 1947 when I was working in Alaska on an assignment. I had been working in the Air Technical Intelligence Center at Wright Field, where one of my jobs was sorting the technical material that came back from factories captured at the end of the war. And we were looking for new aerotechnical developments, and we were collecting the data, separating the data, screening it and taking it out, and it would be translated and abstracted for industry. Industry would brief us on what they were doing and what they wanted us to look for. Then we would go brief them on what we were finding and ask for new guidance. And so I was pretty much current on all of the latest aerotechnical developments in the world at the time. And about that time I was assigned to Anchorage Air Force Base in Alaska. Actually, then it was Anchorage, it was Elmendorf Army Air Station. And the Air Force had just achieved a degree of independence, so I went up there as an Air Force officer. There were only 3 of us there as Air Force officers on an Army base, which was strange because I had to fly with the Army for my flying time. I later figured there was a reason for sending me up there, that it was based on my experience in the Air Technical Center, Intelligence Center, because when I got up there I found that one of my main jobs was briefing and debriefing the crews of a research project called the Ptarmigan Project, a weather reconnaissance project. This was an unclassified project that had some classified riders on it, and my job was to oversee the classified riders. They involved installing some very special equipment aboard the mapping airplanes and taking the equipment back out again at the end of the mission and taking the cartridges of film out and the cassettes of tape out of the devices, packing them in a metal box and shipping them to Washington every night, chained to an officer's wrist. They were couriered out. The Ptarmigan Project consisted of a weather research project where the combat-ready B-29 crews from Strategic Air Command were rotated to Alaska. All of our crews were different. This was a combined research project and a training exercise. All of these crews had targets over the pole, and they were being given polar experience. They were also helping develop polar intelligence, and they would be rotated to Elmendorf Field, where we would install the equipment, brief them, assign a grid pattern, they'd go out and fly it, come back and tell us what happened. On several of these flights, or on a number of them, an average probably 2 a month, the crews came back reporting contact with strange circular aircraft in the polar vicinity. At first, we thought that it was a new Russian development in aircraft. And I think that may be why I was sent up there, is because I knew what the Russians were doing. I knew what they had, and I knew what their industry was capable of. And I began to debrief the crews and hear these stories of these disc-shaped craft flying at speeds of thousands of miles an hour, which we couldn't do at the time, and they didn't burn up. And stopping and standing still in the air and hovering. There were reports of them approaching head-on a bomber flying at, say, 250 or 300 miles an hour. They'd approach head-on, stop, reverse course, and pick up the speed of the bomber instantly, like that. And these were truly strange characteristics for airplanes. They clearly indicated a technology beyond the capability of Earth at the time. There were even reports of them sitting on the snow cap, sitting in the Arctic water, submerging beneath the water, emerging and flying away. And sometimes they saw formations of them, sometimes they saw them as streaks in the sky. At the same time that they were able to photograph these things, they were able to record the electrical disturbances aboard the aircraft, because they were already doing this in connection with the other research. So at that time, we generated both photographs, electrical disturbance recordings, visual recordings, movies, and everything else of these devices incident to other programs. But this intelligence was important because it clearly told us that what we were watching were not Russian technical aircraft, not Russian developments, that it's something else. And I think that's really where the big effort in government research on UFOs began, was in the 1945 on. They picked up a lot of information from the Foo Fighters during the war that at first we thought they were an enemy development. But the war ended in 45, and this is 2 years later, and the things are still there. And so I think that a lot of things were happening then, and that's when I got interested in UFOs, is because of the unique nature of these aircraft that couldn't have been produced by Earth technology. I began my own research then. I never got to see any of the pictures taken, never got to hear any of the tapes, never got to see any reports on the data, because it's a one-way street. I was collecting an intelligence that it goes up and it doesn't come back down again. All they do is tell us something new to adjust, another way to look for data. A new piece of equipment would arrive to be installed on the B-29s to look for other things. Emission scanners that would scan the whole spectrum, looking for radio emissions that we weren't producing and that the Russians weren't producing. And we did pick up some, but I never got to see what happened or what they did with the data.
So, since you began investigating, how often do these contacts seem to be made? I mean, is it on a fairly regular basis?
On a worldwide basis?
Yes.
I would say that there are contacts daily on a worldwide basis. Yes. Right here in our area, where we have a measure of local activity, we average a dozen good contacts a year, but they wouldn't spread out one a month. They come in groups. They're concentrated. But that's just Tucson. When I look at Seattle, they have about the same rate, but the timing is different. The grouping is different. If I look at Buenos Aires, Argentina, they've got about the same rate. So I've got to believe that the contact someplace on the surface of the Earth is at least daily, and maybe more frequently than that, and that a lot of work is being done by a lot of extraterrestrial intelligence. I think that the average number of cases reported worldwide today is something like 80 a week. You know, that gets in the hands of UFO study groups and organizations, that is reported to authorities. And that's quite a bit of an increase. I remember a time on maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago, when it was 5 a week. The growth is substantial. It's been a steady growth, a steady increase. So we are being observed more now than we were before, and on an increasing scale.
You feel that we're being observed more, or that it's being reported more?
Well, both. It's being reported more also because it's getting more attention, and because there are more agencies collecting the data, the more places to report it. But at least we're developing more information. I am not sure, I agree with you, I'm not sure that it isn't all in the reporting, but there seems to be an increase in the collection of data, rate of collection of data.
Does it have to do with our potential of self-destruction getting more imminent also?
I think, yeah, I think that we're approaching more crisis points, and we become interesting laboratory experiments to extraterrestrials. We are at the point of overpolluting our Earth and changing the life on the Earth because of the acid rain, the amount of industrial pollution in the air, the destruction of the ionosphere by industrial pollution, and overpopulation, the misuse of the atomic bomb. There are a lot of reasons that seem to get worse and worse all the time, and they seem to be concerned about how we handle these crises. If they're not handled, if any of them get out of control, they're going to be destructive. Lack of population control can make the Earth uninhabitable. Same thing with atomic weapons, same with pollution, any of those things. And we're at a stage now where we should have begun correcting it before this to get it under control again.
Does it seem that there's a greater concentration in any one area of the world than another?
The only increase in concentration I see is where there's more eyes looking up and more cameras to record.
Does it seem more in the country than in the cities?
No. There are more reports from congested areas, but there's more eyes looking up. There are a lot of reports from the country areas, and I would say that there is more activity over remote areas than there is city areas, even though we get more reports from city areas. Because if you look at the ratio of reporting to population, the cities they don't occupy the densest point on that scale. If you do it that way, then remote areas seem to have the greater concentration of activity.
Do you know, is there any government that seems conducive to researching these in a way that's going to benefit humanity rather than the particular government itself?
Well, the French government has established an official government UFO investigative agency, GPAN, G-E-P-A-N. It's funded by the government, it's staffed by scientists, and they have a budget to investigate cases and develop the data on. I think that they're making progress. I think that we have such programs active here, but it's not public. They don't make any information public. I think our research is probably more advanced than theirs, but not on a public basis.
From what you know, how long have these extraterrestrials been visiting Earth? I mean,
well, the indications to me is
than 47.
No, the indication to me is that they've been here throughout all recorded history, and that we're just becoming more aware of them. There probably is no substantial increase in rate either. They probably have been a lot of visitations. In earlier historical times, we didn't have the media to carry the information, so everything was local. But we did have a lot of local reports that were quite spectacular. If you remember, in the 1400s, 3 cosmonauts got out of a spacecraft in France, near Lyon, I think it was. They were taken to the Bishop of Abelard, who ordered them stoned because they were strangers, intruders in the area.
Tell me, it seems like, say, starting with 1961, Betty and Bonnie Hill, they were sort of examined, as opposed to some later cases where they seem more conversant with the people. Is it because they were different extraterrestrial types, or just that they've progressed to a point where they feel they've learned enough and they're conversing?
Well, first of all, remember there was quite a bit of communication that took place between at least Betty Hill and the occupants of that spacecraft. They gave her an escorted tour about the ship. They showed her a navigational chart, and they explained how they navigated in space. They showed her routes frequently traveled and less traveled and seldom traveled. They showed her, she wanted to know where we were, or where they came from on the chart. And they said, do you know where your son is? And she said, no. They said, what good would it do for us to point out where we came from then? So then he pointed out, here is your son down here. And he said, we come from here, and we have these routes to travel. But there was quite a bit of communication that took place in the short time they were aboard.
But, you know, she says they also put a needle into her abdomen, that they apparently were checking their mouth, since they checked Barney and wanted to know why his
Took his teeth out.
So now what about, you know, we hear also about cattle mutilations. Are those experiments on animals, or?
I don't know. Up until just probably a few months ago, we didn't have any clear indication that there was any relationship between cattle mutilations and UFOs. We had UFOs reported in the vicinity, strange lights and strange craft, and cattle mutilations taking place in the vicinity about the same time. But we didn't have any clear evidence that they were connected. Then APRO received a report of a group of people that had staked out an area where cattle were being mutilated over in New Mexico, and they succeeded in photographing a UFO in the air within hours of a mutilated animal. Then I understand just within the last few days they have received indication that an abductee, a person taken aboard a spacecraft, had seen a cow being dissected above aboard. It's new information. I don't know any more than that. It is now the first connection that we have, though, if that's true, and if that report is valid, it's the first reliable connection we have between UFOs and cattle mutilations.
It could be a form of them studying radiation effects and pollution effects on a life form.
Yeah, it could be anything.
Could be anything. Tell me, of all the cases you've examined, say percentage-wise, what percentage do you feel is really pretty well substantiated? How valid, percentage-wise?
Well, of the ones that I've looked at, where I've been able to look the people in the eye, talk to them personally, talk to the witnesses, go look at the sites, go look at the evidence, the landing marks if they exist, and anything else. So sometimes there's dead animals and damage to foliage. Of about 200 cases, I think, that I've looked at personally in detail, I would say that about 80% of them are, I would consider valid, that really happened. The other 20% might have something, either the person has stretched his story or something that leads to unreliability of information, and that the percentage of real ones might be higher than that, but I'm convinced that at least 80% of the ones that I've looked at are valid. I know that other researchers say that it's the other way around, maybe 20%, but then maybe we're looking at different cases, and maybe we're picking our cases differently. I think that a high percentage of them are really, really happening. I see the changes in the lives of the people. I see evidence that can be examined and tested, and I believe that the percentage is high.
I'd like to mention a few things and just give me your feeling on them. 1947, the flying saucer in New Mexico.
We've had some indications that that is valid, the landing near Aztec you're talking about. One of the indications we've had was a report from one of the two Indian boys that were riding horses in the area that found the crashed saucer on the ground with bodies out of it. They rode back to the local missionary there, parish missionary. He was a Catholic priest. His name was Father Fox. He was assigned in the area. They told him, and he put his equipment in his Jeep and followed them back to the wreck. There were bodies apparently dead there. He administered the last rites of the Catholic Church to the bodies, covered them, and got back in his Jeep and went back to the church, the parish church, where he called the sheriff's department. The sheriff took a couple of deputies, and they went out and looked and decided that it was something that the Air Force should handle. And they went back and called the Air Force, and I believe they called the office at Alamogordo. The Air Force, they described what they'd seen. The Air Force sent in air police troops to cordon off to close off the area. Then they went in with equipment, and they photographed the object on the ground from all angles and everything. Then they loaded it onto a large flatbed truck and made up a convoy of vehicles and hauled it out of there. We got a report from a now retired master sergeant who was then a three-stripe sergeant, said that he was taken from guard duty someplace and assigned to this new guard duty where he was first briefed that he wasn't to look at anything unnecessarily. He was to keep the area clear. And he did see a large object, what it looked like a large circular object loaded on a flatbed truck, tilted at an angle to get it on there, covered with canvas. And he said that the load was too big that they couldn't go under bridges, they had to go around. So they had equipment to do this. And he remained with it for a day, and then he was relieved and sent back to his base after being sworn to secrecy and told that it was a national security project and that sort of thing. And that's the last he heard of it. But he was replaced by other guards who came on the scene at a point. Our belief is that those guards escorted the convoy a ways, maybe a day, and they were relieved and replaced by others. We think that these guards may have been drawn, each group from a different base from the vicinity, so that they didn't know each other, they couldn't match points, that the ones that loaded the object, observed the loading, didn't know where it was going. Those that escorted in between didn't know where it come from or where it was going, and those on the receiving end didn't know where it came from. It was in a matter of keeping the whole project secret. But we do believe that there's enough evidence now that that happened, although we don't have any pieces of the craft or anything. That one apparently was taken to right field.
All right. Travis Walton. What can you You know, I understand that when he was picked up, that apparently he saw more than one type of being. One he describes as the shorter, smooth gray skinned, as I
Yeah.
remember he described them.
Yeah, there are three general classifications of saucer occupants, and they break into about thirds. The first third of occupants seen in UFO contact cases look human-like. They're much like us, and if we put Western clothes on them, they probably could walk our streets undetected. Then there's another major grouping of smaller creatures that have lighter skin, sometimes pasty white, that have a different kind of development. They don't have any eyebrows or eyelashes or hair on their heads. They don't have any hair on their bodies, not on their arms or anything. Their skin apparently doesn't even have hair follicles in it. And the skin is different. The skin is a different texture, and it's much lighter. I'm going to ask you to talk to Martin about that in a minute here. Let's
All right,
go on though,
fine.
and come back, because he's just been doing some studying on those creatures. The third type would be a miscellaneous category that includes creatures that are covered with hair, some with long hair, some with short hair, some with exoskeletons, some with very soft, pulpy bodies. Some are very small, some are very large, some are just different shapes. And you could lump the rest of them into that. But there seems to be a lot of different kinds of entities involved in coming aboard UFOs and studying our society.
Billy Meyer.
Billy Meyer's case is unique in the case that's happening in Switzerland, in the sense that it's unique because the amount of information that's generated there. He has taken a lot of good, clear photographs that we can analyze very carefully. That haven't been able to do this with the fuzzy, moving shapes, you know, and then the lights in the sky at night don't lend themselves to proper analysis. These disc-shaped, structured objects in the sky, below the horizon, in front of clouds, through clouds, that have been taken by Billy Meyer lend themselves to computer analysis in a particular way, and we can study them in greater detail. We have more of them also. We have, in the case from Switzerland, we have metal specimens, 4 different metal specimens we're studying, and they're unique. We have recorded sounds of the spacecraft that we're studying. It's unique. Couldn't be duplicated on Earth. The metals show, I guess you could sum up by saying that they appear to be precipitated from primary matter to the dense stage of density they want by some cold condensation process done in a vacuum. And that's something we can't do here.
You know, we hear reports occasionally about the ships themselves being organic, somewhat attuned to the pilots that are controlling them. Have you heard any stories along that line? Anything
Well,
that might be
there
substantiated to an extent?
Yeah, there seems to be some evidence of that, but in the Swiss case, again, we find probably the best corroboration for that. The aliens themselves have explained that the central part of their computer is an organic component. It's a grown organic component, because the organic component can rationalize better than inert materials can, chemical materials. And because it has an organic component, which is you might call it a cloned brain. It's tissue cells grown to a particular specification for use in a computer. But because it's tissue cells, and because tissue cells are animate material, they can communicate with the computer telepathically and get answers back telepathically through the organic component. So now they say that and they've demonstrated this, that they can get out of the ship and leave the ship empty. All the people can get out. They can send the ship away telepathically, leave it on station someplace, and call it back telepathically when they want to reboard it and go away. Now that's interesting, because that's a slight extension of technology to do that.
A slight.
Well, more than we can do, but not more than they can do.
Right. Tell me, have they given any indication as to their particular lifespan?
Yes, they say that in their controlled environment, artificially produced aboard their spacecraft, where they have no air pollution, they have no cosmic radiation filtering through, They have pure water, and the foods are processed to the degree that they eliminate a lot of bulk. Their foods are more nutritious and less of it, and the water the same way. They enjoy, because of these ideal controlled conditions, they enjoy lifespans from 800 to 1,000 years. Now, they're relieved of the stresses of our society also because they have no economic system, they have no political system, they have no order of rank and precedence, none of the things that stress us. They have in their relationship between the sexes almost equal parity, and they don't have bills to pay. They don't have pressures. So they enjoy long lifespans because the conditions are ideal. They say that when they're here on the surface of the earth and exposed to our conditions, that their lifespans are shortened for the time that they're exposed to a degree. And they do experience some difficulty. However, they can get out of the spacecraft, breathe our atmosphere. It does, in time, affect the nasal. It affects the sinuses and makes their eyes water. But they can handle 2-3 hours out of the spacecraft without resorting to environmental gear.
Have they given an indication of what they subsist on? Is it similar to the type of food we might eat?
Yeah, they grow it or produce it all aboard the mothership, but they have gardens there. They raise vegetables and fruits. They also produce protein foodstuffs at lower orders like algae and lower order things. They don't raise meat animals like we do. They don't have cattle, they don't have meat of that kind. They see that Earth humanity is still requires a certain amount of animal protein, and although they say that we're going to grow away from it, they observe that we eat meat. I don't think that they eat meat.
Do you know of them actually saying that we require it or that we can do with it? Or?
Well, we've gone through a stage that required it. We should have grown out of it by now, and we're slow in doing so. We need what we need to meet the requirements of our society. Laborers working underground in coal mines and doing heavy labor wouldn't have been able to survive strictly on nutritional food. They required a certain amount of protein, animal protein,
Tell me, how many contacts has Willie Meyer had?
He had his 130th contact while I was there 2 weeks ago. He observed, though, that those are the official contacts. Those are the ones that he was allowed to make notes on. He's had another 28 contacts where the information imparted was of a personal nature to him or the group, or information on future developments that he was not allowed to record or even to record the meeting. He was told not to, and he observes their requirements. So he, in fact, has had more than 130 contacts, but he has had 130 that he's published or has prepared notes from.
And that's since January of '75?
So that's since January of 1975.
When he has contacts with them, he knows ahead of time that they're coming, or they just show up?
No, he gets the telepathic advisory beforehand. He usually has an hour or two to prepare, and his preparation is kind of a ritual too. He takes a bath and changes all of his clothes inside and out, brushes out his beard, combs his hair, puts on a clean shirt, gets his pistol, dumps all the cartridges out, checks the pistol over, puts the cartridges back in again, puts it in the holster, checks it in the holster, buckles that on. Then he gets his walkie-talkie radio. He dumps the batteries out, puts fresh batteries in it, checks it with both base stations, puts it around his neck, puts on his jacket, and then he gets the signal that it's time. He may wait a half an hour or an hour this way. And then when he gets the signal to go, he goes out and gets on his moped and drives off. They lead him to the contact point.
The pistol is for his protection from the Earth people.
Yeah, the pistol is, he's found that the dangerous ones really are the Earth people. He's been shot at. While I was there, I witnessed the 7th assassination attempt on his life. But after the first one, he bought a pistol and learned to use it. He's one arm, but he learned to quick draw the pistol, and he has practiced and can now hold a $50 on the back of his only hand turn the hand, tip the $50 off, draw the pistol, and shoot it before it hits the ground. And he's accurate.
Have you said you were there during his last contact. Have you?
No, yeah, right.
Have you actually seen any of the...
I haven't seen any of the contacts. I did one time see something that struck me as very strange, and this was the time before when I was there. He got his indication about 6 o'clock in the afternoon that a contact would take place, and he prepared himself. And he was in the kitchen. I believe Elsie was there at the time. I've never discussed this with her, but he got the signal to go, and it had been raining all day. And the ground outside is porous, but it's fairly level, and it was soft on the top down to about 3/4 of an inch. And you'd make tracks in the ground up to maybe a ½ an inch deep. And it had been raining, and there's water standing in little flat puddles all over the place. And this day, his wife put one of those blue Air Force jackets on him that would shed water because he was going out in the rain. He didn't wear anything on his head. But anyway, he got the signal to go when I was at the far end of the table, and he went out the kitchen door, and I ran around the table and down to go follow him out. But they had a big dog chained at the steps. It ran out to his chain and scared me a minute. Then I went around him and out the door in time to see the door at the end of the shed. There's a long shed from the kitchen door to outside. And I saw the door at the end of the shed close, so I know he just went through it. And I ran to the door and jerked it open, and he's gone. And in the mud were about 3 or 4 footprints went out that far, and there was water still running in, filling them up from the puddles around there and little drops bouncing in them. And I didn't see any more, and I looked around the house this way and that way, and no sign of him. So I don't know where he went or how, but which brings us to how he gets aboard the spacecraft. At first, they would land the spacecraft, and he would go aboard through a doorway, a port. Then that happened for a number of contacts. Then there was a change in procedure. They did not land the ship. They hovered it above the trees, and they'd turn on a beam of light, and he would go up the beam of light to get aboard. Then there was another change. A time came when they wanted to take him aboard from a remote distance, and they simply beamed him aboard from where he was. And that can be done from inside of a building, in the basement of the house, in a car, anything, where he just blinks out and he's gone. He's aboard the spaceship, comes back the same way. And all of these departures and returns have been observed by one or more of the various members of the group around him in Switzerland there.
Are there many people how big a farm is this that he's on?
The farm is it's 10 acres, isn't it, Elsie? How many hectares?
Hectare 20.
About,
20?
Yeah,
20 hectares.
20 hectares, that's about 12 acres, yeah.
About 12. So that's not really a large farm. Are the people...
Oh, Switzerland it is.
Oh, no, what I meant as far as area, so that, it's not so large that people on another adjoining area couldn't see what's happening.
Yeah, but he has military compound on one side, and the other side drops away down into a deep valley, which is somebody else's property at the bottom. Well, the bottom is yours, isn't it?
Yes.
In fact, the landing track, one landing took place in the valley just below the house, and they photographed the development of those landing tracks for a year, watching the change in the vegetation and so forth.
Elsie, why don't you join us now, please? We'll just... There we are. Thank you, dear. Now.
Okay, Elsie is one of the regular members of the group, has been there for a long time. She's been there for 3 years. She lives on the property with the other permanent members of the group around Billy Meyer, observing and recording and keeping track of what's going on.
Oh yes, on about 3 years, I know now Billy Meyer. And when I heard about those UFO activities, I was not really interested in all that. I have never seen before. I heard about flying saucers, but that was all. But then I heard that those people, those aliens coming from the Pleiadians, were giving Billy teaching. And in this stuff I really was interested. That's why I now about in November, last November, left school just to start to study the whole stuff, because it is a big stuff of teaching. So I'm just studying yet, and I'm not just well, I can tell a few things, but
What do you feel you cannot tell, don't?
well, yes. Well, I
But-
mean, there is so much, would be so much to say, but in one point is they are telling him what people already know. They have to look better after the earth. They should not the chemical stuff. All the water is going to be poisoned. They are all those gases and the atom. What do you call atom?
Atomic bombs. yeah.
Atomic bombs and all that. That's very wrong. And also we are having too many people living here.
Overpopulation.
Yes, overpopulation about 8 times. That on the planet Era, it's just they have only so many people as the planet is able to carry.
And it's limited there. They
Yes,
control the
it's limited.
population to
Yes,
that
yes.
level.
And only this they have been telling Billy, and Billy has put this on a paper and sent it to different governments. But people don't take any notice.
Why have they been coming here?
There are different. They have come. The Luranians. They are our forebearers.
Yes, forebearers.
Yes, they have come here 22 millions ago, the first time, and then the earth wasn't developed, I mean the human races, and then they came again and came again and came again, and then they started to live here and to have children here, and then there were fights and wars, and the scientists made a mess, and then some of the Luranians were running away, but the others still were staying, and many of people living here are
Descendants.
descendants of the Luranians, and they feel familiar to us, so they are coming to look at us, and that's why they try to. In the beginning they came as gods, and then they were very like a despot, and kept earthly people little. And now they are more developed, and they think that's not the way to do it. Now they start teaching. We have to do the work. They are giving us information, and then we have to develop. We have to do the work by ourselves. Ourselves.
Have they made any specific suggestions along lines we could follow, how we could really improve, any steps we could take?
Well, by thinking. By
changing our way of thinking?
Really think about everything. Think about the nature, think about our relationship, think about ourselves, really knowing that we are having a spirit ourselves, and that we are able to develop our spirit so that we are becoming more developed and more developed, just like those two.
Yeah, they say that we use, they tell these people that we use a very small part of our available brain capacity, that it's wasteful not to use the rest, and we should learn to think more productively and reason and use the mind to do the things that we should do to evolve our world.
Well, that sounds like we should be getting a lot more into so-called parapsychological things. Well, the fact that they communicate with telepathy would seem to indicate that...
Well, they also articulate the conversation. These Pleiadians do.
They seem pretty articulate as far as several Earth languages are concerned.
Well, this contact team has learned the language of the area.
In 1 month.
In 1 month.
Same year.
Other teams learn other languages of other areas. They say that they can learn any language of any time of the Earth in a matter of a month. They have mechanical procedures for doing this.
And the other ones, they don't have learned the language. They are having transmitters.
Yeah, they also have thought thought converters that convert thoughts to the language.
When you say the others, are these all Pleiadians?
I mean the Pleiadians, because Billy is having contact with the Pleiadians, physical contact. But there are other aliens. You've just heard it from.
When you say the Lemurians, the Pleiadians were descendants of the Lemurians?
No, not Lemurians.
No.
Lurians is what she's saying. They're beings that come from the direction of Lyra.
Those are our grandfathers, the Lurians, yes.
Right.
And we are familiar with the Pleiadians.
Yeah, the Lurians are also the ancestors of the Pleiadians.
Yes, and that's why they have started thinking more deeply a long time before the earthly people. They are having peace already at the planet Era, 50,000 years, no war. And I think if we try hard, one day it is possible that we don't have any more war. And that, I think, would be a step forward, too.
Tell me, how much has all of this activity affected your area where you live? As far as socially, the way the neighbors have reacted, are they for it or against it?
Some of them are listening, thinking, and accepting, and many of them, they just say, oh no, that can't be.
Very superstitious, and they don't want the disturbance in the area.
Oh. Have you had much resistance from the government there?
Well, resistance, yes, in a way, but they don't come and try to listen. They stand apart.
And watch.
They don't want, at this time, they don't want to have to do anything with it. In contrary, if somebody's going to tell them, we have seen something, they notice it, they put it down, they say, we haven't seen. After. We haven't heard. They are not, they are still a little, not too sure. They think, we will wait until we are having more information.
You've seen some actual landings?
I have not seen a landing. I have not seen a craft in the daytime, but I have seen it coming. I have seen it several times at night. Once Semyaza came, and we didn't know then. It was only like a little star coming along, and another star on the sky at Dmitriti, and then they came like that. And then they turned, and the funny thing was the other one went with. And they turned again. And then we were running inside to get Billy to ask what is going on the sky. Then he came out, and he stands beside to find out. Then he had an information by telepathy, and then he said, yes, it is Semyaza and Menara. They are giving you a show. 8 times they will fly, and then they leave. So we were counting 1, 2, 3, 4, and after the 8th one, they went off.
All right.
And I saw it also once coming along when it came like a star, and suddenly it went so big, orange, red. And then I heard a noise of an aeroplane, and you couldn't see anything more.
Blinked out.
But then Billy came, looked at me, and then he just did what you have been telling, went inside, get ready for a contact. And then I could see him walking around the house behind, and nothing. Then after I could see that star flying away again, and then after about an hour or we had to find, or half an hour, we had to go, and Jacobus Perchinger had to go and get him far away. Yes.
Tell me, could you give us a brief background of Billy Meier, his age, his educational background, either or both of you?
Well, Billy Meier went to a normal school, but his most important teaching he had from the aliens. When he was about 5, 6, he Svarth came along in an old craft.
Yeah,
more like
Spoth arrived in a
bear.
cylinder-shaped craft that landed on end and on 3 legs, tripod legs. A door opened and he got out and met Billy. He also told Billy at the time that he was the voice that Billy was hearing in his head, identifying himself as the telepathic voices that Billy had been hearing. Took him aboard the spacecraft and took him out into space for about an hour and talked about many things. Brought him back and told him that the teachings would continue, the telepathic communications, where he expanded the knowledge of this young boy well beyond the knowledge of his contemporaries in school. As a matter of fact, he became disinterested in the studies in the school because they were so easy, and he quit going to school. Also because he was a very poor boy, and the other boys would taunt him, and they would make him the butt of their jokes. They would play pranks and make it look like Billy was the one responsible, and the teachers would punish Billy. But that happened in my school when I was a kid, so I know how this works. And Billy tried to tell them the truth, but they were more willing and prepared to listen to the other boys from the wealthier families, and Billy usually ended up being punished anyway for something he didn't do. At first he felt bad about this, then he began to think that he began to think that the teachers were really stupid, not being able to see through these things, and he began to take a kind of a secret, in his own mind he thought that they must not be as smart as him because he knew, and they didn't, and they couldn't seem to see through it. It was a kind of, he accepted the punishment because he thought if they don't know any better, they don't know any better. And he thought, and really it was, in one thing, it eventually made the boys that were doing this feel guilty. Later on, they felt very guilty about it. But so it was an interesting play on status.
Oh yes, and he had to learn a lot. I mean, I just know that he had to learn 11 million symbols. It sounds
Through the
symbols,
radio?
yes, but that's only one thing.
11 million?
Yes, 50,000 fundamental symbols, but then changing. Yes, because he had to learn all that because of this communication in telepathy. He had to study a long time, and after that after Svath left him, then Asket came to look after him, and when he went in the east,
Askat
she was
is female.
female. That is a female, yes. She came and was talking to him and gave him more knowledge about the whole world and about the universe and all what we don't know. So when she left, he had to do on his own about also 11 years, just everything on his own. And then in 1975, Semyasa came, and that's really when the mission was starting, when a few people were interested in Switzerland about UFOs, and then a little group started to discuss those things. Yes.
Have they given any indication why they have not made themselves more widely known? Do they feel it would either cause a problem, or why are they not more widely seen by people? You know, in large groups, maybe people would begin to listen then.
Well, they tried to do it once, but then they analyzed the people they would like to come, and then they found out that many of those people would be so scared that, and many of them would just
shoot.
Yes. We are not ready yet. At least in Switzerland, maybe that you are ready here. That
no,
may
they
be.
Would probably react
that
even
could
more
be.
so, yeah.
But so we just are looking forward that it will at one time happen.
You don't know of any specifics they've given to help evolve people outside of looking toward nature and simplifying?
I didn't get
any specific.
Have they given any particular kind of preparation we should be making to progress to the point where there will be more contact with more people?
Well, as more as we know about them, as more they seem to us more like brothers. And there are groups making angel out of them, but they are really human being like we, only a little more, big more developed. That's all. And as soon as we recognize that they are pilots on a craft coming through the universe, just staying here, then we don't will start those silly things to shoot or to be frightened. And also they are our thoughts. We usually are thinking without any control. We are sending out thoughts uncontrolled, like this, like that, like that, and that they are not used to. It's difficult for them. They get a little nervous. So that's why we before have to learn to control our thoughts, to think in a neutral way. And as soon as we are able to control our thoughts, then the communication will start.
Most of us think destructively or avariciously. We want to acquire something, we want something to possess something, or we want to destroy it. We don't have organized, proper thoughts. And this frightens them a bit because all of these things are apparent to them simultaneously in the thought patterns. Their thought patterns are organized. They know what they're thinking and where they're going and what the objectives are.
Martin, would you join us, please?
Yeah, he's got some information. He's done quite a bit of study on alien creatures,
Stay.
alien beings that will be interesting. Okay,
Please.
you're putting this on Martin because...
All right. All right. Elsie, please.
Oh.
Now it would be pretty cozy. Martin, tell me, what is your background? You mentioned earlier parapsychology and...
Yes, I've been studying parapsychology for about the last 5 years. I've been working here at the university and also up at the University of Utah and the University of Oregon at Eugene.
And what have you come up, how have you tied in, how have you come to see a connection between extraterrestrials and parapsychology?
I really haven't. But there possibly is a connection that many of the unexplained events in parapsychology that say, for instance, leaving the body, or a person that is capable of moving dishes and things like this could, and this is of course experimental, could have had some of the genes or what have you from the back, going back to say 5,000 years ago of these people. That's why there's some people that are more prone to be psychic, telepathic, telekinesis than others. And since there are about 1,000 different types of genes, some of these, that's one particular research theory. And
Martin has just been doing a review of the available information on analyses of alien beings. Most of this is not available publicly. He's working inside of the organizations. Ask him to describe a typical alien being and what was found in the pathological examination of the body.
Oh, that's interesting because you hear occasionally about examinations being done, but you don't hear much about results that have come from.
Yes, well, it's been quite a while, and some of the doctors and what have you and technicians that have done some of these things have, of course, had to sign security releases, like Mr. Stevens has told you. When you sign a specific thing about a specific autopsy, you can't reveal that, or you can be held supposedly under the National Security Act. Well, anyways, some of the Let's see some of the autopsies that were done back in '56 on some of these crashes, and also in '58 and in '60. Some of the autopsy reports have been filtered out through some of the retired doctors and what have you that are no longer involved. And on some of the humanoids, the 4-foot, 3-foot humanoids, some interesting things have been found. One is that they have no internal digestive system. In other words, they take in no food whatsoever. They have no genitalias or any orifice for food. And also their mouth is just a slit, and there's just a little hole or what have you about so big in there, and that's it. And there's many theories that they could be genetic clones, like biological robots that can be grown in some type of catalyst and then do the work of whoever their masters are. And also on several other of the autopsies, it revealed that the blood, or what we would call blood, is a clear type of fluid, and it had similar to our blood with electrolytes and white blood cells. It had no red blood cells. And on one report, it's been shown that type O positive was the blood type of one of these humanoids.
It wasn't a standard blood type, though?
No, well, O positive is...
It's the closest they could classify it, but it didn't have red cells.
Well, I meant, have they found O positive consistently among...
No, this is one
peculiar.
this is one peculiar instance that they've had.
Has any autopsy work been done on beings that seem to resemble what we would consider human-like?
Yes, from the information that I've gathered, and from several other sources that have been working on it, that there are humanoids that have had autopsies done on them that are just quite similar to us. Some have had no teeth, others have the exact same organs that we do, and there's a slight irregularity in the skin pigment, and also the cell structure, which is still hasn't been done by electron microscope or scan electron microscope, because the pathological specimens, from what I understand, are under a general category of specimen unknown, and just a number. And there's supposedly at the pathological, either the Smithsonian Institute of Pathology or the Walter Reed Institute of Pathology, and also the Air Force Institute of Pathology, have, from what I understand, samples, but they're not classified as alien being samples. They're classified as samples unknown with a number.
Mm.
The ones that have no teeth, if I remember correctly now, have either a monotooth or a bony ridge in there that takes the place of the teeth.
So apparently the ones with the bony ridge must ingest something. Or probably not at all if they don't have indigenous...
In that same grouping are the ones that apparently have a different excretory system. They have no anus, for instance. They have no, their ingestive system is very underdeveloped. A weak chin, a very small mouth, and no teeth, or just a bony ridge.
That could indicate lack of... now, the fact that those that were found without genitalia seems to indicate that it could be possibly a form of a clone, or a
It's possible.
An idea, yes. We don't have any positive evidence. Anyway, these are conjectures, mostly. But some of the evidence is available for examination, is what the main thing I wanted to mention here.
About how many of these beings, extraterrestrial for lack of probably a better term, how many have been actually examined?
As far as some classified and unclassified material gotten through the Army and the Air Force, there's approximately 30 to 40 bodies in the United States. Now we also have to take into consideration that there are other governments, primarily European, and from what I understand also the Soviet Union has them also. And we don't really know how many they have. We do know that there are, at one time, there were bodies of a crashed disc off the coast of Germany, and also one that crashed in England, which belongs technically to the Swedish government. And Russia, of course, has at least 20.
Communist China has indicated that they have a crashed disc also, that they've studied the bodies that crashed someplace in the Gobi area.
You know, it seems like things seem to be coming to a head more and more. Apparently, we've reached a point where it's not like they showed up in the 14th century and said, well, there's not much we can do with these humans right now, these Earth people, and might observe for a while and take off. We seem to have reached a point where there's not too much farther we might be able to go to before real disaster could occur. Does it seem, any of you, Elsie, Stevens, or Martin, have you heard anything at all that would indicate that they might interfere, they could interfere, they feel they should interfere? Or if it comes to this, one last thing, yes, a question?
Well, no, I have a statement. According to the Solar Cross information, you know, beings of higher intelligence view our Earth and our sun and our solar system as more or less like an atomic structure. And they view our galaxy as like a cellular structure. They view our universe as just a part of a larger entity of some sort that's viewing its own universe. As we are looking out on the stars, within ourselves, our own cellular structure and atomic structure also has universes and worlds going on. And time in relation to mass and the blink of the eye of the larger entity that we're a part of, millenniums go on here, and in the blink of our own eye, millenniums occur within our own bodily systems. And that if we do get to the point of self-destruction, that we will, like within our own system, if we start an atomic malfunction within ourselves, we have immunity systems that serve to eliminate it. And that if we start an atomic malfunction within the galaxies that we're a part of, the immunity systems of the larger being that we're a part of may serve to not only eliminate us, but the solar system of the galaxy that we're a part of, and that is one of the cosmic laws where they have the right to interfere.
Well, that's a good argument. That's the best way I've heard it expressed. But yeah, there is some indication that we won't be allowed to destroy our Earth. We can destroy all the life on it, but destroying the Earth may have bigger consequences, and there are some indications from some cases, I'm not sure that's in the Palladian case, that some interference would take place to prevent that degree of destruction. We won't be able to blow it up.
What were you going to say?
Well, if it is going to destruct, although the system out, it may be that then the Pleiadians would interfere. It may be. But the first thing now, instead of thinking, what would they do when? We have to try hard before.
To reverse the process so we don't get into that situation. We shouldn't be trying to destroy our world.
Tell me, you know, is there anything you'd like to add, Martin, before?
Yes, to the question that you were asking before the theory was brought in, what can be done, or what is being done about the aliens, and why isn't anything happening? First of all, the aliens have made themselves as known as possible. I mean, our government knows about it in a very hush-hush way. I mean, you can't walk up to the average person and ask them. People like Billy Meyer and what have you, or Mr. Meyer, have the information at hand if we're willing to look at it. But one thing that's always puzzled me and what have you, that all the contacts and people that have been given contacts have never been given any type of collateral or money to do what they're supposed to do. For instance, Mr. Meyer is supposed to publish. but yet they don't give him the money to publish. These humanoid bodies and what have you that we know that they have, the discs that we know that they have, and people have sacrificed themselves by landing here telling us that they are there. Why don't we look and try and investigate and scientifically analyze it? But yet we can't, because every time we try we're either stopped by the government or some unknown person or what have you, and it's just a big stymie. And unfortunately, until we can get around the secrecy of the government and realize you know, that they are real, then maybe we can help our technology, our science, and our biological science to a better advancement.
Right. Colonel Stevens, there is something I'd like to ask you before it slips me. You said that many of these sounds that were that have emanated from these flying discs we're incapable of reproducing with Earth's technology. What is it? The frequency or the?
No, we can't produce the whole sound. We can take any segment of it and reproduce it with synthesizers. In the case of the Meyer experience, there are 32 separate tones being simultaneously emitted. That would take 8 synthesizers and 4 mixers, costing a total of about $250,000 to do. We can make any straight segment, but we can't make the segment vary in amplitude because we don't have any amplitude varying equipment in electronics. We can't band lock the frequencies to change all of the amplitudes simultaneously. We can change frequencies simultaneously because we have frequency control devices. But we're not able to do more than make a straight segment of sound, and what we have recorded is a fluctuating sound with a beat to it. So yes, we cannot reproduce the sounds that Billy Meyer recorded. We can reproduce any straight segment of it in synthesizers if you want to spend $250,000 to do so.
Anything you'd like to add, Elsie?
Oh, I only hope, I mean, just that in the future people will have open minds to listen to this and to also to listen to the teaching.
It seems like going back to some of the ancient, for us, for humanity, ancient teachings, maybe some of the ancient Tibetan teachings or Chinese, or even the yogic teachings, might be a key for us, a key that leads us to a more natural way of living, a less yes?
Yes, I think people have forgotten about the basic teaching. If they wouldn't have been twisting it up and keep it inside in them, I think we would be more developed yet.
Where will it all end? I want to thank you all for your time and your energy and what you've given for Elsie and Colonel Stevens and for Martin. Again, one last thing anyone would want to say?
I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you for
Well, thank you. Thank you for your time. We haven't come that far. Well, you've traveled much further than we have. We've only come from California. You've come from Switzerland.
Oh, I love it here. I think it's like being home.
Good. Well, you may be, because you may be visited tonight or something. All right, let's see.
I'll pick that up and go to the sounds. Okay, here's a photograph taken by Billy Meyer. It's number 200 in his album. Okay.
One moment.
The photographs taken by Billy Meyer in Switzerland. This is picture number 200 in his album, and here we show a contact print from the original 35mm transparency. This is of the third variation spacecraft, and when we print this contact print directly into a print, we get this image here. That's the sharpness that we get. Then we took this image and to a commercial photography shop and had it custom enlarged from a transparency to a 4-inch by 5-inch internegative. Then we made this print from the internegative. This is a contact print from the internegative. You'll see it's a little bit sharper than the print from the original transparency. What we've done here is transferred the depth in the small transparency to depth again in a larger negative. The negative will pick up the depth that the paper will not. So then we took the 4x5 internegative to an electronic scanner, put it through the machine, and made 4 separate color separation negatives. The scanner scans 400 lines per centimeter horizontally and vertically, and simultaneously creates 4 separate color negatives for plates. Then we took those plates to a printer and had them printed onto poster paper and developed this much detail out of the same picture, where initially we couldn't see the detail. You can see a gold band around the top, you can see the shape of the top and everything else. Now that spacecraft, the sounds of that spacecraft were recorded on another date as a Swiss Army Mirage jet fighter made 22 passes on the ship. And here's the recorded sound. That's this ship over another location on another date when it was pursued by a jet fighter, and there you just heard the jet fighter go through.
What is happening now, Billy? There is coming an airplane from the Swiss Air Force. Okay, we can hear the airplane in the background coming in. It's being vectored in on aircraft. She has put up the shield and also turned off all sound, right? Craft is searching for her. Can't see her. Now he is, I would assume, going away.
There the jet fighter goes through again.
Circling back. Somebody phones to the army because the whistling of the ship must be hearing around a very big area. Yeah. Somebody must have phoned the military. Perhaps someone saw it and phoned it. Or at least they could have heard it. Plane is still in the sky. Now, could you see Semyasi's craft while the plane was there? No, you could not see it. No. They did with three different plates. The first one, what you heard just now, that's a Pilatus Porter. That's a small plane. And the next time there came a U-52. U-52? Yeah, Junker 52. Right. But they had in Germany at the last World War. I see. And the third time they came by a jet. Mister? By Mirage. Oh, Mirage. Okay. Three different aircraft were vectored in. Semyasi is playing cat and mouse with them. Dog barking in the background.
That's that ship there making the noise.
If you can put the others there, we'll get a real sharp, because remember, you're getting a copy.
Oh, okay.
We'll have a real sharp...
Okay, that's the end of that one. I'll have to back it up and get more sound here. If you,
Great.
well, we can describe the others as we put them back in there.
Fine.
There's one of the ships
Okay.
behind the
Now, let's see.
tree that's real sharp.
Yeah, we'll come back to that.
Now, see this? We'll get much better
Yeah.
shots.
Okay. This is the same
Oh,
same
yeah.
ship again. Oh, are you on?
Right.
Are you recording?
I'm gonna, right now?
Oh,
Now.
whatever. Okay.
Um,
This is the same spacecraft that we made the poster from. This is another photograph in the same series. It's the same ship. You can see the amount of detail that comes out before we put it through the computer processing and the internegative stage. This is the one that we recorded the sounds of, that Billy Meyer recorded the sounds of. This is a third variation ship. Here is a second variation ship. This is the second style that Semjase used, the second kind. It carries a crew of 3. The crew are all women on this ship, in most cases when he saw it. He at one time asked about the number of females piloting the ships, that up to about the 18th contact he hadn't seen any males. And he asked them if they had males in their society, and they said yes, that they did, that they had the same balance as we had, but that in hundreds of years of observation of Earth humanity, they had seen that we are less hostile to females than we are males. And as the work distribution is equally divided in their society, females crew the ships coming to the surface, which is a logical method. Here's another picture of the second variation ship. This is the one that Semjase used for most of the contacts. There was an earlier variation of this that she used about 6 times, and then it was retired and decommissioned and taken back to the parent planet. Here's another picture of the same ship taken in the same sequence. This is in the vicinity of Obersadleg. It's a property owned by the Meyer Group. They acquired it after they moved to their new location. This one was filmed in front of an 8mm movie camera, recording the photograph at this, recording the movie, the action of the spacecraft on Super 8mm movie film at the same time that the pictures were taken with a hand camera, still pictures. The movie camera is running on automatic.
When were these taken?
Well, I'd have to look up the dates here. I don't have them marked on this. All the pictures were taken in 1975 and first half of 76. After that, they told Mr. Meyer that he had more than enough pictures to do what he could do with pictures, and they refused to allow any more pictures, and he has not taken any since. We have some indication now, since 1976. 76. For a year and a half, he got pictures. They originally intended to let him have only a few pictures, but he managed to get them to pose the ship a number of additional times. He finally shot 800 total frames, of which he's never seen over 600. The rest have disappeared in processing, never came back to him. But that still is a lot of pictures. They told him that when he had 100 pictures, that was all he needed and that there would be no more, but he did manage to get a few more. They've now told him that they are about to put another ship into operation, and they will allow him to photograph the new ship. Here, if you want to focus in on the top part here, we might be able to show the relative clarity between the picture from the slide and a print from the slide, or the contact from the slide and a print from the slide.
Can you hold that closer, Tom? Mm-hmm. And we'll get an even better shot.
Okay, you can go right up to the best focus on the 35mm probably.
Yeah, Michael, would you turn the light? No, it has to be further back, Tom. It has to be further back. There we are. All right. There. And
Let's start at the top.
oh, I thought we were on.
You already have the pictures of the ship in front of the tree, but if you want to stick that in there again, it's the same picture that you made the other shot from. The other was a better print than this one.
Mm-hmm. Let me just, there we are. Fine.
Do you have any posters?
Like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a couple. Well, here they are, right here. That's all I got. You don't have any yet?
No.
Well, let me give you one.
Oh, boy.
Why do world governments continue to deny their existence when photos like these continue to appear in newspapers the world over?
I've had 315 transmissions, none of them personal. Helpful messages of different kind are given.
The voice of Dr. George King, president of the Etheria Society.
There is not one single important question facing the world today that has not been answered by the space people in that 315 message transmission. They have not condemned man, but they have made various suggestions how man can help himself to stop wars, to cure all disease, to cure all famine on earth. We've even had intimations on how desert regions could be cultivated, etc., etc., etc. I met was tall, round about 7 foot. He had 2 eyes, nose, mouth, 2 legs. Skin was a cinnamon color, as though that skin had been tanned by exposure to long or even shortwave ultraviolet light radiation. This Earth, indeed this solar system, has been invaded several times in the past 20 years. Those invasion attempts were aborted because the 5 adepts, as we call them, fought on your behalf. You would have been utterly, abstractly powerless against the forces which did not have your interest at heart.
Recorded April 1978 at the Shrine Exhibition Hall in Los Angeles, California.
In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good, and God divided the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And the evening and the morning were the first day. And God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. And God made the firmament, and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. And God called the firmament heaven, and the evening and the morning were the second day. And God said, let the waters under the heaven be gathered together unto one place, and let the dry land appear. And it was so. And God called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters called he seas. And God saw that it was good. July 20, 1969, Apollo 11. Astronauts Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin lift off on man's first attempt to land on the moon. One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. For the first time. But what of the poverty-stricken masses, the third world, the hungry, the dying? What would this giant leap mean to them, if anything? Dr. Frank Stranges, director for 14 years of the National Investigations Committee on UFOs.
New sciences and industries appear as man probes further and further. The moon is only a stepping stone to other planets, other galaxies. The government is pushing to gather UFO data, confirms Apollo astronaut Edgar Mitchell, who landed on the moon in 1971. Interest in UFOs has been revived and is increasing at all levels in the military, says Mitchell. There have been just too many UFO sightings and too many fighters scramble to chase them. Drawing boards are jammed with renderings of spacecraft with new energy sources, from atomic power to solar propulsion, designed to travel in space for years. Man's imagination knows no bounds as he reaches out to make contact with outer space beings. But man must also prepare himself physically and mentally. He must devise protective clothing against hostile space environments. Are there beings in outer space, extraterrestrials? Do they communicate from planet to planet, from spacecraft to spacecraft? Are they trying to contact Earth physically as well as psychically? Man listens, scanning the depths of space in search of decipherable sounds which he can in turn translate into meaningful messages. These are two unidentified flying objects photographed by United States astronauts as they were making history on the fringes of outer space. These are two elongated UFOs that were photographed trailing U.S. astronauts on their way to the moon. According to a high-ranking officer at Cape Kennedy, not one space probe leaves the launching pad without being trailed by unidentified objects, as is attested to by these two unknowns photographed by Lovell and Borman. UFOs have been photographed by people from all walks of life. This particular one was taken by Dr. Daniel Fry, scientist. Sighted at night, these three unidentifieds were photographed in the skies above Honolulu, Hawaii by a housewife. Notice the close formation of this 180-degree turn, which has mystified aerodynamic experts the world over. These four UFOs were photographed by Seaman Shell Alpert over the Coast Guard base at Salem, Massachusetts. The UFOs made no sound and were not tracked by radar. This UFO was photographed over the home of an insurance executive in Seattle, Washington. Paul Villa always had a secret ambition to see and photograph a UFO. This day in 1965, he was in the right place at the right time with a camera. According to the experts, Paul photographed an instrument package or space probe, very similar to the probes that have been launched from Cape Kennedy to the Moon, Mars, and Venus. According to Paul, the space probe made no sound, nor did it land. In Adelaide, New South Wales. This is the first UFO of this type ever photographed in Australia. It was taken in 1962. This is a blow-up of this most unusual top-shaped object. Notice the metallic color. This cigar-shaped UFO was photographed above a small park in the Glendale section of New York in 1967, which was a peak year for UFO sightings in the United States. There are rare occasions when UFOs are photographed in formation. These five unknowns were seen on the outskirts of London, England. Among many witnesses present were three Royal Air Force pilots. Now this one, unlike many of the UFO sightings, gave off a high-pitched whining sound above Tulsa, Oklahoma, about 1 o'clock in the morning. Many witnesses were frightened, and some petrified with their mouths open. As it departed, the whine changed to a high screeching pitch, sending dogs scurrying for cover. The more it increased in velocity, the wider it became. This is an unmanned probe photographed by Paul Villa on June 19, 1966, about 9 a.m., 30 miles north of Albuquerque, New Mexico. It was approximately 6 feet in diameter and made a loud buzzing noise. The UFO was accompanied by several spheres. When the spheres landed, they bounced, shot straight up, then landed again in almost the same place. The small spheres were about 3 inches in diameter. The larger ones about 6 inches in diameter. The larger spheres remained on top or close to the top of the UFO. The rod on top of the dome is an optical device incorporating a combination of prisms and lenses. The three legs approach the ground.
Dr. King, when did you first become interested in outer space and UFOs?
It was in 1954, and it took me by surprise, actually. I had been practicing yoga for many years previous to this, but on this Saturday morning in May 1954, I was in my apartment and I heard a voice. It was in English. The voice was not in the head. This was no psychic apparition. The voice was outside of myself, and it said, "Prepare yourself, you are to become the voice of interplanetary parliament." Well, I had no idea what that meant. I knew nothing about UFOs in those days. I had not studied them, but I had studied yoga. And I'd studied yoga long enough to realize that this was very important. And it was 8 days after this first event that I decided that the only way that I could solve this mystery, because nobody else could help me, and I tried many people, was to go into meditation myself. So I locked myself in the room, fully determined to stay there until I got some answer. Well, I didn't have to stay very long, because a man, physical, who I did recognize, he was alive in India at the time, a well-known yogi master. He walked into the room without me having to open the door, by the way. He walked across the floor and sat down in the chair, which creaked under his weight, and he told me about the previous contact I'd had, voice contact, and he gave me certain instructions. For instance, he said that you will receive an invitation from a yoga teacher in London, and you should attend his classes and so on. I have had some physical contacts as well as mental contacts. Very briefly, the mental contacts are quite unusual in a way that I precipitate a yogic samadhic condition in order to gain mental rapport with higher intelligences. But I've had also some physical contacts, and I'd like to talk about one in particular. On July the 10th, 1958, I was ordered by the Master Aetherius to present myself in North Devonshire, England, which is in the south of England. And I went there, and I was told that I must carry no metal on the body at all. So I parked the car in a certain place after I'd received further instructions, and I proceeded to a place called Stony Cross, which is overlooking a village called Coombe Martin in Devonshire. And it was at night time, 10:30 at night. I was first contacted by a being from the planet Mars. Now, this man was invisible to me, except that he did cast a shadow in the moonlight, and his shadow was very, very much larger than mine. He said to go back to the place where we met, and I would see a gap in a wall, and I had to go through that gap and climb up to a hill. And I did indeed climb to a hill, which later I found out to be Holston Down. Now, I was given instructions to go onto this hill and pray for world peace.
Timothy Shanks, UFO researcher from San Diego, California.
My research indicates to me that UFOs are physical types, there are psychic types, and there are biological types.
It's a very serious subject around the world now. Who across the world are studying the UFOs?
From the United States, we have Brad Steiger, John Keel. From France, we have, I'm not sure he's from France, Jacques Vallée, Professor Hynek, Brinsley Lepore Trench. I consider the work of the late Dr. Wilhelm Reich to be very important. A man named Meade Lane. One person from religion with a religious background, Gordon Melton, is doing some interesting work. In Europe, they are taking it a lot more seriously than here. The Netherlands, Brazil is also, England is experiencing a lot of sightings. All over the world, yes, Japan is interested. The USSR is very much interested.
Venezuela, Argentina, Mexico, Brazil, Norway, Sweden, the Philippines, Chile, France, and Grenada. All of these people do officially state that flying saucers do exist, and some of them go even further and say they believe that they come from other worlds. A country that does not believe in the existence of UFOs is a country of deep sleepers. For instance, America, Russia, and England have studied UFOs for a number of years, and I think they have amassed sufficient information to know of their existence. But you see, they will not officially admit that they know of the existence of unidentified flying objects.
But how long have these UFOs been coming to Earth, and why to certain places? What have Palenque, Tiahuanaca, and Stonehenge to do with these sightings? Stonehenge has been attributed to the Druids by some historians. But is this fact? How were these huge monoliths erected? Can we attribute places like these to extraterrestrials?
As you check back into history, you have to remember that references to objects in the sky were not referred to as UFOs. They were described as whatever the person was viewing, whether it was a cloud or a flying boat, as North American Indians would describe some of these things, or a luminescent pearl. So you have to study the language and study the account itself. But all world cultures refer to various unusual objects in the sky throughout the course of recorded history. The modern era began in 1947 with the Air Force beginning its study and a tremendous number of UFO reports. Early reports of objects came in 1896, 1909 from different parts of the world.
Many people believe in UFOs and that extraterrestrials are coming to Earth. Some are convinced that they are now living among us. The whole town of Kerman, California, conspired to keep the May 13, 1978 occurrence a secret to preserve their privacy. However, word leaked out and made headlines.
Discusses UFO landing in California.
Greetings, Earth people. I am your Space Fleet Coordinator. I'm the forerunner for the space people who will be landing before long now on your Earth planet. I am the messenger and a forerunner and ambassador from many of the spiritual worlds and the physical planes and the astral dimensions who have come to this your Earth planet to introduce you people to a higher way of life.
Almost always when people have a close proximity sighting, that is a UFO very near to the road, for instance, if they're driving along in their car, the car engine will stop and the headlights will go out, etc. This is common. It's happened all over the world.
I was sitting in a car and suddenly I had my eyes closed and I was meditating. The car was filled with a brilliant blue light, and I opened my eyes and there was no sound. And I looked up to the sky and there was a beam of light coming down towards me. And then it went out and there was nothing there.
Dr. King explains his energy charging expedition requested by space beings.
In Operation Starlight throughout the world, there were 18 mountains which were charged through myself as a channel. I did not manipulate the energy for the charging of these mountains. It was manipulated through me by the space intelligences. We have here scenes from Mount Kosciuszko in Australia, which was charged on December the 5th, 1960. We had tough blizzard conditions on that mountain. The last picture shows me manipulating the energy which was put through me by other sources, which caused an initial charge to go into this mountain. The other mountain in Australia was Mount Ram's Head. This was charged on December the 8th, 1960, and we had no problems at all except through heavy snowdrifts. These pointing stones have been there for thousands of years. The next set of pictures you see were shot in Switzerland in 1961 on August the 13th, and this is Mount Medrigeflu. And again we had blizzard conditions the day before, but it did clear up considerably when we made our climb.
Dr. King discusses his confrontation with a UFO that occurred in Halston Downs, England, on a hillside in the 1960s.
When the Master Jesus departed, he moved over to the side of me, and it was then that I regained consciousness, and because I was in a deep trance condition just before that. And I saw a vehicle somewhat similar to this one here, this model here, a flying saucer, a scout patrol vessel, and it came down and hovered a few feet above the earth. I'm not sure how many feet, because I kind of saw the bottom of it, and I saw the three little domes on the bottom, and I saw a bright green ray, very, very bright green ray, come from the bottom of the saucer like this, and Jesus stepped to one side into the ray and he disappeared. I believe he was taken up into the craft in that way, because I saw this craft move through the heavens and join two more craft which had been hovering there during the whole experience. It was an amazing happening. It's something which really did affect me very, very greatly.
Brian Scott, Orange County, California, goes into a trance state, using his body as a telepathic channel to receive and transmit messages from a being known to him as Voltar. Our cameras recorded this as it actually happened. We have edited the hour-long session to show you a portion of this extremely incredulous and dangerous experiment.
Yana, go.
020, 020. We understand that the probe wishes to impart information at this time. We're willing to receive this information now.
Acknowledge. Unity, transfer, Voltar. Delay factor 7. Relay open. Daniel, physical energy displaced. Unity of the council.
Good evening.
Good evening, Voltar.
And that of the light. Be off.
And to you in return. It was good to talk to you again.
It is that. And of the play of life. Not today. What is now is within that knowledge. Our involvement and that of your planet. Since that, but the days of Tiawanatha have yet but to manifest in but a few.
It has been again a pleasure to share your presence. We ask the return of Brian and the amplification of all systems against secondary world interference. And thank you again for sharing this communication with us.
Execute. Logic input. Voltar. Return. Scott. Open. Lock.
at that of my presence, upon that of the world yet to be. It is now. Jim?
Yes, Brian?
That's the time in South America.
Yes, it was very strong. Are you speaking from there now? The eyes are rolled back.
It is now that of their land. There is much sorrow. Danielle's decision has upset many people.
How do you feel?
I feel great. It's just like it was before. There is so much to learn and so much to offer. It's nice to remember what it was a few months ago. Wow. How about some air? You'll pin the needle.
What was... Jeez. You were right there at the end.
You know, different.
Was that the part of you that's on their world, or was that, what was that?
Just like it was after the transformation.
Yeah.
Same idea.
Scott, before entering... The dark exposures represent a normal energy level. The light-colored photos that were taken while Brian was in trance are considered rare and unexplainable. Brian Scott remembers vividly a frightening contact with the space beings.
When I was 16 years old, I experienced a phenomenon known as a ball of light that appeared behind my house. My dog basically gave the thing away by barking so loud that he was waking up half the neighborhood. Investigating what the dog was barking about, I had found this object hovering in the sky about 6 to 8 feet above my head. The ball of light appeared to be orange-red in color and only lasted for about 10 seconds and suddenly shot up into the air. From this experience, at that time, I didn't make too much of it. My most important intent was to get the dog to be quiet so my parents would not be aroused at 2 a.m. returning from a 16-year-old birthday party for myself. Very shortly after that evening, I woke up again, but this time I woke up at the kitchen table. And when I had woke up, I found myself with a big mess all over my arm. And apparently somewhere during that sleep period, I had managed to jab and tattoo this object into my right forearm, which appears to be a spider. From that time, we moved up to 1971, where I had an actually physical contact with aliens in the Arizona desert. It was their request at that time that I would journey to the Nazca Plains and that I would find from that the information basically to be able to bring back some of the cultural studies that were going on around the Incas and so forth and the pre-Incas. Nothing about the spider when I was 16 made very much sense. In 71, it didn't make much sense either. But in 75, when we really got into all this and started taking some of the journeys they requested me to do, we did find that some of the stuff they were talking about was being the tie-in. And apparently it became something that I myself had eventually asked, why me? Why did they particularly get into this thing with me? And I found out that it wasn't just a me situation. Apparently, to begin with, I was in the wrong place at the right time, or totally the wrong place at the wrong time. But it was based on my decision to take the next step if the information they were giving me was going to be valid at all. And once we began to research and actually dig into it, myself and a few associates, different various investigators and such from leading UFO organizations, we found out that the relationship between the spider on my right forearm and the Nazca Plains were identical. And this particular symbol ties into a technology and energy system that is used for them to be able to travel, apparently, interstellarly between planets and stars. So what it came out to be in the very end was that the information that they were giving me was basically valid. And what they were telling me, I had some belief in what they were saying. It was from that point that I decided that if the information they could bring forth to me or through me and other people who have had an experience like this could be put together in some nutshell where we might be able to offer the information to the general public in a way where it would actually prove the phenomena as being either real or unreal, we might be able to get a handle on this UFO thing, the unknown.
The unknown. The Incas, the Mayas, the Toltecs, all ancient civilizations, gone from the earth. Why? What sort of unexplainable energy forces seem to be concentrated at Nazca, Tiwanaku, Palenque, Uxmal, Tikal, Chichen Itza? Brian Scott went in and out of the trance state every few seconds while he walked these plains. Why? Are these centers of past civilizations linked to forces from outer space? Facts suggest they are.
Mr. Schauffler explains the results of his encounter.
A day after the encounter itself, I found that I began feeling pressure within my head, and I started seeing figures dashing out of the corner of my eye, just glimpses. And then I began to find that I could concentrate, and I began to see flashing colored lights. Later I found that I could actually see the forms, and they are what people refer to as spirits. I found also that my eyes began to change, and that even in looking in the mirror, I found that they began to take on a more hypnotic type of stare. And others related this experience to me, that they had noted these changes.
Dr. King discusses the origin of mankind.
The planet we are now living on was populated by a very advanced culture called Adamic man. Hence the Adam and Eve part of the Bible. The people who came to this planet came from a planet called Maldek that used to orbit between Jupiter and Mars, and there was an atomic explosion on Maldek which blew the planet to pieces. Now, they had to be reborn somewhere, reincarnation being a fact, not a theory. And also, there's no such thing as death per se. There's only death of the physical structure, but the thought and the soul and spirit do not die. So they had to have a life experience. So they were reborn gradually throughout the hundreds of centuries onto this planet Earth. Now, all that's left of Maldek is the asteroid belt. And it's a very interesting thing to note that just lately scientists have discovered pieces of meteors which they know come from the asteroid belt, and some of these meteors contain elements, minerals in the exact amount as found in the human body. And these minerals are petrified into the rock pieces, which prove that ancient man, before he came to this planet, had a similar physical structure to what he has today.
Various parts of who only secretly will attest to their existence. The theory is that to reveal the fact that governments are fully aware of UFOs and the revelation of their files would panic the public. And secondly, would cause chaos to the economy of the world. However, these are actual filmic records taken mostly by accident by people from all walks of life and in many different locations.
24th, 1947. Pilot Kenneth Arnold, a deputy federal United States Marshal, took off on what he thought was to be a routine flight over the mountainous country near Mount Rainier. An experienced flyer with over 4,000 hours in his logbook, he little realized that this particular flight was to start an investigation that would cost the federal government millions of dollars. 3 o'clock in the afternoon found him cruising at an altitude of 9,200 feet above the rough terrain, some distance from Mineral, Washington. As was his custom, he watched the mountains below for signs of illegal campfires or other downed aircraft. But there was nothing to cause an alert. His instruments showed that he was on course and holding steady. He was making a 180-degree turn toward the Forbidden Plateau when it happened. A weird high-frequency sound suddenly came out of nowhere, seeming to head directly toward him. Arnold banked his plane sharply, thinking he was buzzed by some new type of jet fighter. Leveling off, he tried to sight the offending jet and perhaps get a number or description to report the incident. A mid-air collision over these rugged mountains meant little chance of survival. He checked his instruments again, and to make sure that he had not drifted into another flight lane, a lane used by experimental aircraft, he was still on course. Then, without warning, it happened again. Arnold pulled up sharply as the weird sound engulfed him. Only this time he saw what had buzzed him. Far to the left and toward the north, a formation of very bright objects moved through the sky in the vicinity of Mount Baker. They were flying at a fantastic speed, their silvery outlines clearly visible against the dark mountains. The strange, saucer-shaped objects flew in an echelon formation, and then, gaining altitude, shot off into the blue and vanished. Would he be a crackpot if he reported the sighting? Would he be laughed at by his superiors? But what he saw was real. There was no doubt whatever in his mind. He decided to risk ridicule by making a complete report upon his return to the home base. This report, the first recognized sighting of an unidentified flying object, created a furor. Pilot Kenneth Arnold said that the silvery objects looked like flying saucers. The name made headlines throughout the civilized world. Arnold may not be remembered, but his coined phrase, flying saucers, will never be forgotten.
My first encounter was in October 1958 with what I claimed to be an extraterrestrial being that I've since found out comes from the planet we call Saturn in our solar system.
Robert Short, UFO investigator.
It was, to me at the time, a very frightening experience. The being said to me, "We have come down to make an adjustment in the power of our craft. We will see you at a future time." And I thought, what criteria do I have to understand it? And it wasn't until several years later, in fact, after another individual had another experience with the same individual, that I began to understand that my work as of from that time would be through the auspices of the solar government on Saturn in this system. And all message work that I do or channeling that I do would be through their auspices, through the subspace radio network in this system.
Ruth Norman tells of Earth landings from various planets.
There will be many planets, 32 different planets in number. They are all physical planets, some within the solar system and some outside. 32 in number. And they will all land simultaneously on the Earth world. About 3.5 years ago, I was inspired, prompted by my space brothers to purchase some property about 40 miles north of San Diego. It's near Yamul. It's 67 acres for the spacecraft landing. Now, just one craft will land there, and we will have the other 32 craft to land at various points on the globe.
Mr. Arman recounts his first experience with UFOs.
I was in Los Padres National Forest on the wilderness area, and we were hunting Russian boar. And I thought I seen a Bigfoot, and I instantly thought $1 million, shoot it, make $1 million. And I drew on it, and I couldn't pull the trigger of my pistol. And I tried for 5 minutes. While it watched me, I put the pistol back in my pocket and took off running. I was scared to death. And I went back to my friend. I told him about it, and he says, well, you must have been hallucinating. I said, okay, I was. And that night we were in the tent playing cards, and we just finished a hand, and he was looking out the tent, and he says, he turns to me, he says, Norman, look at the funny lights up on the mountain. The mountain was about 3/4 of a mile away. 3 of them, and they got larger and larger. And then I jumped up and stood in front of the tent door, and a blue one flashed across the side of the mountain. Another one came over the top and lit up about 3 acres. And I turned to him, I says, Joe, did you see that? And he had his head covered up. And I went to shake him. And he says, I'm asleep, leave me alone, leave me alone. And just then our campsite lit up as bright as day, and we blanked out.
When we first found out
systems.
They do fly interstellarly. However, they do not fly in the same manner that the rocket ships fly or blast off from Earth as we know it. They use the electromagnetic lines of force which permeate the universal substance of this galaxy. Contact, such as an energy device which will use the natural oscillation of atom structures themselves. We will be taught how to arrange the vibrancy of the atoms to extract natural energy emanations from the very atom substances and siphon them off into power stations. And it will be a free type of energy.
Mr. Schaffler reveals more about his encounters and how it affected his mind.
Well, I found that I not only could see spirits, but I began to see buildings where I knew there were no buildings. I could see grids in the sky, just patterns of energy. I saw auras off of chairs, off of houses, off of literally everything I saw. At nighttime, just before sleep or while I was in a sound sleep, that I would be woken up and I could hear as though someone was talking to me, as clear as if you were talking to me now, telling me that I should go to these different places for different experiences.
They will be landing very soon. As soon as the Earthman himself steps up his consciousness and receives the Space Brothers in an open, receptive way where they would lay down their weaponry, where they would lay down their hatreds, because the Space Brothers bring a whole new science of life, a whole new way of life, which will change and restructure society as a whole. And we will start to tear down the various prejudices which we have had, not only among ourselves, but against life on other planets, life on other worlds.
Dr. Stranges, you have been involved with UFO investigations for over 30 years. If alien beings were to land, do you think they would be friendly?
That's a good question. UFOs have had this Earth under surveillance for many thousands of years, and if they were going to attack or cause the human race any problems, they would have done so a long time ago. But there have been a few cases where some cattle and some people have even suffered because of so-called negative saucers. Someone said if these are intelligent beings from outer space, they couldn't be too intelligent if they're visiting the planet Earth. But on the other hand, I believe that we have been a source of, shall we say, potential threat, because as one scientist put it, we can take and set the atmosphere on fire with hydrogen devices, and this could cause the planet Earth to be completely destroyed by fire, and in so doing, it could disturb the other planets in our solar system.
All the people in this solar system are friendly disposed towards Earth, and they are very, very advanced people, but there are other people in other parts of well, not only this galaxy, but galaxies beyond this that have not been friendly. In fact, the solar system has been attacked by outside forces in the last few years. And in order to repel these forces, there was something which we might call a galactic war. This did happen, and I have very detailed reports in the Aetherius Society library, which we maintain is the largest in the world of its kind, actually describing some of the action which took place during this galactic war.
Dr. George King in Los Angeles, 1978.
There are at least 3 people from another planet living on Earth today. These 3 people are living in Earth physical bodies. These 3 people are highly specialized adepts whose job it is to protect mankind from any interference from outer space and any invasion from outer space.
The predominant UFO seems to be saucer-shaped, as attested to by this picture taken by Paul Villa. You are witnessing a most amazing UFO film. It was viewed by the United Nations Outer Space Affairs Committee, the Congressional Hearing Committee on UFOs, and by the government-sponsored UFO investigation conducted at the University of Colorado, where the film was also viewed by the late Dr. Werner von Braun. This 16-millimeter film was shot by Dr. Daniel Fry, a fully qualified scientist, and has been judged as a most valuable contribution to UFO authenticity. Experts have concluded that UFOs may have different planetary origins. If space beings exist, and they do travel in these space vehicles, there is nothing to prevent them from inhabiting various areas on this planet. Our egos would have to be enormous to think that we are the only intelligent beings in the universe. This picture was taken in France in 1967. It remained motionless for 4 minutes. These 2 UFOs were photographed over Taormina, Sicily. They remained silent and changed position 4 times before vanishing. This photograph was taken during the International Geophysical Year by an officer in the Brazilian Navy. These objects were seen coming out of a cigar-shaped vehicle in Morristown, New Jersey. Early one Saturday morning, Mr. George Stock was aroused by his sons shouting, "There's a flying saucer above our house." This was in New Jersey. Some UFOs are motionless while others revolve.
Incredible writing's been done on extraterrestrials and flying saucers.
Yes, indeed. There certainly is. It's called the Holy Bible. It's one of the best flying saucer books ever written, as a matter of fact, although it wasn't written for that purpose. It's filled with accounts of extraterrestrial visitors and vimanas and lights in the sky and flames in the sky. And we are informed by the Cosmic Masters that the Star of Bethlehem was indeed a flying saucer. It could not have been a star, because if any star had moved through the heavens and suddenly stopped in the position that the Star of Bethlehem did stop, this would have upset the gravitational field of the whole solar system. And we'd have probably had a tremendous disaster, certainly on Earth, if not on other planets as well.
The biggest change was that this compelling drive within to travel and go to these different places. I found myself going to Orcas Island in Washington, Key West in Florida, Palenque and Chichen Itza on the Yucatan, Teotihuacan at Mexico City. And each of these places I met beings, and I say beings because they would come up to me and know who I was, not by name, but why I was there, and they had similar purposes. And we could relate, and it was as though we were contacting and joining forces and relating to each other our own experiences, and each of us had a different piece of the puzzle.
Alan Michael reveals his first encounter with alien beings and discusses his visit to a UFO.
The first one, I was enveloped in a shaft of light. And as I went up this shaft of light, I just looked back, saw my body, and went right up out of it, right up the shaft of light into a mothership in outer space. This was a ship I had incarnated into this body. I was just returned to be with the people I was with before I came here in this body. There are some 2 million people in telepathic bodies on this planet now, making ready to receive Earth people, to bring them into the kingdom of God.
We interviewed Carl Anderson at the Long Beach Naval Base in California. He has been a government employee for over 20 years. He presented one of the most unusual UFO encounters on record.
Space people describe how the ship was propelled.
Yes, they told me all about the propulsion of the ship. In fact, they told me that the interplanetary spacecraft are what we've come to call flying saucers, and they told me that the craft was essentially a flying electrical motor. The field coil turning in one direction, the rotor or the armature going in the opposite direction, propelled by a power in the center, such as a battery of a type which we're not familiar with. They told me that when these two counter-rotating sources revolve to a speed relative to the Earth as it turns in its axis in relation to its mass, that it becomes weightless due to the fact that the electromagnetic lines of force thrown off by the craft repel the magnetic lines of force that the Earth creates, and thus propel it away from the Earth's surface. Now, by reverse polarity, this can be made to attract and thus pull back toward the planet again. By neutralizing this effect, between the attraction and the repelling force, this is how they are known to hover in one spot.
Do you have any physical evidence of your space contact?
Yes, a crystal stone was presented to me as a keepsake or a memento, and I have had this little stone to Germany with me in 1960 when I went over there after this contact. It has been analyzed by spectrographic analysis, and the experts from Heidelberg University claim that there are properties to be found in this stone that are not to be found on this Earth.
Since man's first giant leap into space, countless industries have led the way into yet unexplored fields of aerospace sciences and space medicine. New techniques have kept pace with inventions as man seeks methods to develop machines capable of carrying humans into the far reaches of space.
Mr. Sherbin, would you please explain how your model corresponds to UFO propulsion systems and how it ties in with the reported rapid and erratic movements of flying saucers?
Yes, this model relates to flying saucers in 3 ways. This basically is taken from what they call planetary motion, and flying saucers also duplicate planetary motion. Now, planetary motion of a flying saucer, or this arc, is that flying saucers rotate, they oscillate, and they pendulate. Our vehicles that go into space do not duplicate planetary motion. They duplicate motion that came from the flight of birds. One would be linear, and the other is a cyclical geometry. This has to do with the rotation of the Earth. This is a daily cycle. Its orbit around the sun is a yearly cycle, and what they call the roll is a season or reverses of precession. And this duplicates flying saucers and also upsets our concept of gravitational forces, because this is a pendulous force that overcomes what we consider inertial force and reverses rotation in violation of our laws of motion. And science cannot explain this because science has never proven its laws of motion, and this is a definite violation of the laws.
How does this apply to Einstein's theory of relativity?
Einstein's general theory of relativity is not really true. This is a model of relativity. It's of cyclical relativity, and I have a physical model. Einstein's special relativity is based upon the equivalence of gravitational and inertia mass. Both inertia and gravitational forces have never been proven by physical experiment. Einstein merely had an idealized experiment where the experiment is imagined and the results are imagined. He has no foundation whatsoever for his relativity. This does have a foundation for relativity in that you have the rotation of the Earth, you have the pitching, which is its orbit around the sun, and precession, which is our reference into the galactical system. So here you have a celestial frame of reference, and Einstein has nothing at all whatsoever. And here you have gravitational forces here, which will overcome what they call inertia forces, which definitely disproves Einstein's general relativity. Here's a model of cyclic relativity disproving general relativity.
How did you arrive at the particular shape and measurement for your arc? And how does this configuration relate to motion sickness as we know it?
These were taken from the dimensions that God gave to Noah from the book of Genesis. It states an arc, and Moses was placed in an ark of bulrushes. It gives the length, the width, the height, and the camber. Thou shalt finish at a cubit above. By building this shape of an arc this shape, it is actually a mathematically perfect boat, because it's taken from arcs, which an arc is the most perfect of all created forms. Now, this particular shape, all the forces in the ocean are compressive strength. So being a spheroid, it's the strongest on compressive strength. It's the strongest on both cantilever and truss stresses. And this boat does not boast too. It quarters lines of force. But one of the most remarkable things about it is that there is no motion sickness. And this is what happens. What gets you motion sickness is the liquid in your ear slopping back and forth. Now, this has what I call double pendulum stability. This is like a compass being placed in quadrants. So when this is in the ocean can move around it, and the boat will always remain perfectly stable, where any other type of boat will broach to in the seas and start rolling and get you sick. So this boat, if you're going to put a large amount of passengers in it to withstand a storm, this is the shape that I would use. And it would also be a perfect survival craft in a form of kayak today. Say we had an atomic blast and you had to get out of the cities. This is the shape I would use. And since it also duplicates the planetary motion of flying saucers, and there's no motion sickness, they must be able to transport themselves through space and just make any type of move they want, but they would feel no motion whatsoever inside. But they must be highly advanced on this type of geometry.
Elok Ron Dunan Super
and the human body through Carillion photography.
Carillion photography, or the way I prefer to call it, aura photography, basically registers on film the energy emanation from an object, and very often the way it is used, the energy emanation from the human body, most often from the fingers, because this is one of the easiest things to shoot.
May I ask exactly how you interpret the colors that you get from these fantastic photographs you take?
This is a typical question from a Western mind. Exactly. I am afraid I couldn't give you an exact answer because this is still not an exact science, although some scientists attempt to make it an exact science. Colors can be interpreted in different ways depending on the person, depending on the interpreter, and depending on the intensity and the quality of the color. So there is no scientific chart by which everybody can go and say, well, that means that you are sick, that means that you are angry, that means that you are well. But there are some standards, some guidelines. For example, certain type of reds may indicate anger. Certain type of red may, and pink even, may indicate a problem. Blue and white usually manifest calmness. The problem with questions that require exactness is that this type of things are not always exact and they are not scientific, although some Carillion photographers try to make it scientific, because colors can be interpreted in different ways. There are different methods of interpreting them, and in the final analysis it depends on the quality of that particular color and on the interpretation and on the subject. For example, red can be interpreted sometimes as anger, as release of some negative qualities, even as disease. But some type of red, under certain circumstances, may indicate sexual arousement and possibly a positive flow of energy and vitality. As a rule, however, colors such as blue and white are considered very positive. They are spiritual colors, they're colors of healing, they're colors of enlightenment.
Dr. Neve, in these colors and everything, does this explain some sort of radiation or force that could be connected with UFOs in any way?
Yes. Those people who work with Carillion photography, quote-unquote scientifically, usually would use slides, and the slides would focus mainly on the corona, the emanation from the fingers, and I don't think they would dare making any connections. However, for that reason, I, being a parapsychologist and a metaphysician, I use Polaroid pictures because they are rather sensitive and you can photograph more than one finger at the same time. And the background that appears on those photographs seems to give me as much and more information than the mere emanation of energy, like halo-like or rings of energy that come out typically from fingers on Carillion photography. So I would say yes, metaphysically speaking. We have some very interesting, some people call it weird experiences, where we actually get faces on film while all you exposed were fingers. And in fact, we had cases where students focused on trying to bring to them a guide. And as you know, a guide can be a spiritual guide. It can be actually a being from a different planet that is guiding, overshadowing this earth. And actually faces, recognizable faces, would appear. Sometimes we had even more strange experience where faces that were similar to the person I photographed appeared, which may establish some kinship. In other words, I believe that there are two basic types of aliens, of people from another place on this earth. Some of them are people, or rather beings, that know, they had the experience, the knowledge, the memory of coming in, let's say, with a spaceship and landing on Earth. But more often, these are people who were born, like you and me, from a father and mother, human father and mother, and their being alien manifests in terms of an energy inside a human body.
All
right? That's all. Now pull your hand out now and close it so light doesn't come in. And here's your picture. It is developing right now. Okay, it's going to get darker and darker. And while it is getting darker, I would like you to think about that question, about that problem that you had while I was shooting it. Because even now, you are affecting the changes, because this is sensitive. There's a chemical change going on, and the energy that comes from your mind in form of thoughts and expectation does affect it right now. And I want you to be in touch with what you feel, because this is just like dream interpretation. I don't right away take a book and says, well, water means life and fire means love, whatever. I first of all find what it means to you individually. So get in touch with any kind of association, even if you think that it makes no sense. Now I'm checking now briefly with this psychic responder the energy flow from your chakras or your psychic centers. So this is the crown chakra. This is where you would usually get your communications from different dimensions, you know, like through your dreams or with being from outer space if they did not come to you in a physical form. Now, think right now for a moment about the problem that you were thinking about before. Now, immediately it is start changing into negative. You see, now think again, think now about the positive, about the solution of this problem. Now, honestly, I'm not doing anything consciously to it. You see, it is turning now positive. So you see, you can actually affect yourself. Now, this will check your communications. Now, this is one of your most powerful ones. And this is, of course, very important chakras. If you are open up here and you are open down here, this makes you more ready for such communication with being from different dimensions. I'm going to play you a healing music from the Holy Land. The first part has a tear to it. Let that tear flow through your entire being and wash gently but effectively the causes of all pain, all constrictions, all barriers to communication, and make room for the second part that has a dance to it, and let that dance create celestial rhythm. And this celestial rhythm will create harmony from within yourself. So just all you have to do is just to listen to this and just relax. Let the great life force flow through every atom in your body, through every subatom, through every process or probability of processes known or unknown to you or to science, and bring everything within you in all dimensions and in all levels into harmony so that the guidance can flow through you so that you can get in touch with everything. And so it is. And when you're ready, you open your eyes and be wide awake, feeling it being perfectly well and perfectly one with all.
Something about ancient civilizations on Earth and their relationship, if any, to UFOs and space beings.
Yes, there were ancient civilizations. In chronological order, Lemuria came first, and some people believe that this was mainly where the Pacific Ocean is now, and mankind reached quite a high stage of evolution in Lemuria, so high, in fact, that he discovered how to split the atom. And, of course, mankind being what he is, a very warlike creature, well, the result was the destruction of Lemuria. And also, the Earth at that time did flip a few degrees on its axis. Later on, we had another civilization built up again from the atomic ruins of the last, and that was Atlantis. Now, it's interesting thing about Atlantis is this, that at one time, science can prove that the whole of Europe was covered with deep snow and ice. And some catastrophe happened very quickly, which altered the course of the Gulf Stream so that it flowed nearer to the coast of Europe and up through and actually near the tip of the north of Scotland. Some people believe that this was a part of the continent of Atlantis going down. Two of the most ancient books on earth are now translated from the Sanskrit into English, and they do talk about Vimanas, which were flying machines, and they do talk about two atomic weapons that were used. One, the Brahma weapon, and the other called Indra's dart. There was an atomic war, and the result of this atomic war was the destruction of Atlantis. Again, it's very interesting to note that people are now making quite some discoveries in this regard. For instance, they found a huge road about 100 foot beneath sea level. This road is made of very, very large stones which do not belong in that area, and these stones are fit very, very closely together. The stones, they estimate, weigh hundreds of tons each, and it's possible that the Atlanteans had powers which we do not have today.
Dr. King expounds on types of UFOs and their propulsion systems.
We have the large mother craft. These can be tremendous size. They have a capability of, shall we say, tuning into natural magnetic forces which do flow very freely through this galaxy and transferring that into kinetic energy. The usual type of scout patrol vessel, like that in this little model here, which, by the way, is made exactly to scale. This is a model of a scout patrol vessel, which is about 32.5 feet in diameter. Now, this vessel here has three propulsion units. One I won't mention at this time, it's too complex. The other, again, it's capable of tuning into the natural flow of forces throughout the universe. But the third one is very interesting. As these vehicles operate for the most part quite near to a planetary mass, such as Earth or another planet, they're able to reverse the flow of gravity. The space people know, by the way, that gravity has two poles, rather like a magnet. A magnet has a north and a south pole. Gravity has a positive and negative pole, and they're able to reverse the flow of this gravity so that a planetary mass can repel the vehicle or attract it. This is often the reason why some scout patrol vessels fly in a rather, shall we say, erratic manner. This is an artist's impression of the third satellite. On the top, there is a huge crystalline dome for collecting the sun's energies. At the bottom, there's a power matrix for transmitting the sun's energies after they have been conditioned by the enormous crystals within the craft. This next drawing gives you a rough idea of the position of the third satellite. You see the impression of the sun, the energies being collected by the dome at the top and transmitted to Earth through the power matrix at the bottom.
Dr. King explains the universe's dependence on the sun, not only for energy, but for its material existence.
All life in this solar system, and we are told in other solar systems too, is dependent upon either this sun or their respective suns, whichever it might be. You know, the sun is very, very important indeed to us, far, far more important than people realize. The master Aetherius has made this statement, which science will not understand for the next 1,000 years, but he has said, talking about the physical aspects of man, you are all solidified sunlight.
UFOs have been sighted over every nation in the world, reports Dr. Frank Stranges.
The National Investigations Committee is a group of individuals throughout the world that's solely dedicated to scientific research, evaluation, and investigation of UFOs, and it's also open to the public. I would say in my 32 or 33 years of UFO investigation, I have found definite evidence of a conspiracy. When we speak of the word conspiracy, it's a group of individuals who gather together with a prime purpose of either doing good or evil to a subject or another. As far as UFO conspiracy is concerned, yes, there are forces at work to squelch all valid UFO material. The United Nations has gone on record as saying that they would favor open hearings, open investigation, but the first nation to object was the United States, and this is rather comical. However, the United States Air Force still contends that UFOs don't pose any threat against the security of the United States, nor does it represent any more advanced technology other than we can meet.
Robert Short, founder of the Blue Rose Ministry in Yucca Valley, California.
I believe that they want us to understand that basically, coming right down to it, we really are one race of people, united under one supreme being or created life they call ageless life, Almighty God, Father of lights. And that we, as the children of the Supreme Creator, have our decisions to make insofar as trying, if we can, to put forth the willingness to achieve peace in our time, rather than bringing us to the brink of what we call an Armageddon. And so far as I know now, the peace efforts, even though continue to be tried, is like the old axiom, when they cry peace and safety, there will be none. We are headed for the final countdown, unfortunately.
The producers wish to acknowledge with profound thanks the cooperation of the following people, without whose help this film could not have been made. Jim Frazier, Dr. George King, Dr. Frank E. Stranges, Ruth Norman, Reverend Robert Short, Dr. Elon Neve, Brian Scott, Gabriel Green, Dan Fry, Thomas Miller, Mr. Schaufler, Mr. Armin, Alan Michael, Carl Anderson, Timothy Shanks, Charles Sherburne, Sarah Nickerson, William Young, and Steve Shutak.